We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today, State Representative Andy Holt. Representative Holt, we talked about your gun giveaway, your AR-15 gun giveaway in the first part of the show. There seemed to be a lot of that going on these days. There was one effort to give away a Glock 43 gun here in Nashville later on in July that was going to be a part of a blood drive being held at Nissan Stadium that involved Metro Police and Water Department, Sheriff Department employees, excuse me. But apparently that had not been approved through the Chief's Department or Mayor Berry. They both did not think it was a good idea, so that part of the event has been canceled. What is your reaction to that? My
reaction is anytime there's an opportunity for us to place firearms in the hands of law-abiding citizens, in my opinion, that's a good thing. I'm not surprised that Mayor Berry disagreed with that promotion, but I think unfortunately the event will suffer because of that. We have to just recognize the fact that most Tennesseans readily accept their Second Amendment rights, and that gun ownership is a relatively natural thing, and it's something that all of us are entitled to do, and it's a great way to promote events.
Former State Representative Joe Carr, who's running for Congress, is also giving away, I think, an AR-15 at an event that's coming up soon. Is he copycatting you? You used to be office mates at the Hill.
That's correct. Actually, I'm in the office that he formerly occupied. But whatever the motivation is, whatever the case is, I'm proud that he is drawing attention. I mean, obviously, you just plugged his name here on the show, so attention has been received, so check that part off.
The Supreme Court this week also voted 6-2 that if someone's involved with a domestic violence incident, convicted of it, either a felony or a misdemeanor, they will no longer be under federal law. They upheld that federal law that keeps them from being able to have guns. Is that responsible gun ownership in your mind?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, what we can see is that the laws in Tennessee would negate a felon or a person who's been involved with domestic abuse.
Well, this is a misdemeanor as well.
Yeah, well, and you know, ultimately what we see is that there are individuals that should not have access to those weapons if they've shown themselves unqualified or unfit to keep and bear arms.
This brings up, with the Supreme Court being involved, a lot of focus on the importance of the upcoming presidential election. Donald Trump is the Republican candidate. It appears to be he will be. There have been some leaders in Tennessee not quite getting behind him, national leaders either. Where are you on Donald Trump? Do you plan to support him as the party's nominee?
Well, what I see is that there is very, very little excitement about this presidential campaign, and rightfully so. Neither candidate, in my opinion, is fit to serve as President of the United States. So I'm not shocked by the lack of support that has been received by Mr. Trump. And in my opinion, I have looked at his life over the years past and have not seen the conservative that he claims to be now. So you know, I'm always willing to look into the future as his actions unfold and occur, and hopefully he'll prove me and several others wrong. But you know, he has not lived a life of conservatism that he now touts.
So you're looking at a third-party candidate for president, or are you just going to sit out the presidential race?
No, there's no way to sit out the presidential race. It's obviously a very important race, and one that'll have dramatic impact on the United States from this point forward. All I know is that ultimately Hillary Clinton is the most damaging force that could occur here in the United States. An extension of the Obama administration, I think, could be disastrous for the United States.
Most people see Tennessee as a pretty solid Republican state. It
no
has
doubt.
Been the last times been through. Do you still expect Donald Trump, if he is the nominee, to carry this state, or is there enough feeling the way you are that maybe he will not carry the state?
No, I think he'll definitely carry the state. And one thing you can say about Donald Trump is he's brought voters out of the woodwork, individuals who have not seen fit to show up to elections in years past have shown up for him. He draws out not only Republicans but independents, and I think he has the capacity to actually pull off some Democrat votes here in the South, and I think that he'll handily win the state of Tennessee.
Well, there also are two Tennesseans whose names are being mentioned as possible running mates for him, Senator Bob Corker and Representative Marcia Blackburn. You said as time goes on and Donald Trump does other things in the campaign, you keep an open mind about what may happen. Would either one of them being on the ticket play a role with you in deciding what to do in the presidential race?
At this point, no.
neither one of them are attractive enough to you as candidates, or you don't care who the vice president is in terms of who you're voting for president?
Definitely not Bob Corker. I'm not necessarily a fan of Bob Corker and kind of the actions that he has performed for us as a U.S. Senator. I've not been very impressed.
What in particular bothers you about Senator Corker's performance? Since he's up for re-election in 2 years.
Iran. The deal with Iran, I think, was very damaging for our country, and I think ultimately may be damaging for him politically in the future.
Another national issue that came up this past week, the Supreme Court struck down a Texas law that's very similar to laws that were here in Tennessee that would require admitting privileges for doctors and that abortion clinics be licensed as ambulatory surgical centers. Is it back to the drawing board? I suspect you voted for those two bills to regulate abortion. So what do the pro-life people do? The pro-life people do now?
Well, I think at some point we have to start recognizing that decisions from the U.S. Supreme Court are, in some cases, rather temporary. We have to recognize that in the past, Supreme Court actually reduced the percentage of which a person of color had the opportunity to display a vote in the United States. So the Supreme Court can be wrong, and I think they're wrong about this decision. And I think ultimately, when we look at the effects that this legislation would have, in Tennessee, you can't have a dog spayed or neutered in a clinic anywhere in the state that's not licensed and regulated, but somehow or another up until the changes that we wrought this past year here in Tennessee, you could have an abortion in an unlicensed, unregulated clinic. So I think if we're really looking at trying to advocate for women's health, those are probably laws that need to stand.
There were times a few years ago when Republicans spoke highly of the Supreme Court, how conservative it was. President Obama's only made 2 appointments that have been confirmed to the Supreme Court. He's got a third that's still waiting in the Senate, probably will not be acted on.
Will not be.
How did the court suddenly get so liberal when he's only made 2 changes out of 9?
No, I don't know that that's necessarily the court itself has changed, but their decisions definitely have over time. When we look at the implementation of same-sex marriage across the United States last summer, that decision upholding that Obamacare is literally a tax, and that's the reason why the federal government has the opportunity to enforce that. I can disagree with the Supreme Court all day, obviously, but they do have a great deal of perceptual jurisdiction over these issues, and I think as time goes on, hopefully we'll begin to recognize as a state that we're a sovereign body, and decisions can be made for us here in the state, but we don't necessarily have to uphold those decisions specifically. And I think that at some point we need to flex some sovereign muscle here in the state of Tennessee. When 84% of folks said that we wanted to ban same-sex marriage some years ago here in the state of Tennessee, but then a Supreme Court decision comes down and says, well, you'll do this anyway. Well, my understanding of the 10th Amendment says that states are a sovereign body, and most importantly, the last 4 words of the 10th Amendment says, or to the people. And I think that at some point we have to recognize that the highest, most authoritative voice in any sovereign body should be that of the people and the will of the people. They've spoken very clearly, and I just think it's unfortunate that Washington and the Supreme Court can't see the will of the people.
State Representative Andy Holt's our guest. He's from the Dresden area. Back to continue our conversation with him after you watch these messages.